In this week's episode of Pocket Wellness, Trish goes more in depth with polyvagal theory and identifying your stress response, be it fight or flight. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. I'm Trish.
And I'm Julie. We are two nurses exploring holistic healing and wellness practices to empower you to be the leader of your own health. Join us as we try out new things, or as we call it, weird shit, and have some fun along the way.
Hi, and welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. This is Trish with another episode of Pocket Wellness. We've talked a lot about the nervous system, but we really can't talk about the nervous system without talking about stress. Stress puts our nervous system into overdrive. It searches for danger via different signals that we're receiving from the vagus nerve. However, when stress becomes chronic or traumatic, our nervous system feels that it's in danger, and this becomes a normal state. When that happens, we've lost our ability for rest, rejuvenation, and repair. When we're talking about stress or even trauma, it's not just psychological. We have physiological responses that influence all of our systems, the nervous system and the influence on the endocrine system, the hormones in our body, our digestive system, and even our immune system and our ability to keep us healthy and from getting sick. So how do you know if you're recovering from stress? Think back on a recent situation. Ask yourself, how long did it take me to return to that state of calm? Did the amount of fear and anxiety that I experienced match the situation at hand? Am I experiencing this sense of worry, even though I logically know that things are okay? Are other situations happening after you're stressed, like gastrointestinal issues, or do we have problems sleeping? That's some questions that you can ask yourself. Start to get an idea of how you are responding to stressful situations and getting an idea of how it is affecting the nervous system in your body. We're talking about the nervous system. Specifically, we're looking at the autonomic nervous system in our body. We have the sympathetic branch, and then we have the parasympathetic branch. The parasympathetic branch is broken up to the dorsal vagal and ventral vagal. And it's those branches is what makes up polyvagal theory that we talked about previously with Dr. Stephen Porges. When we look at these three states, we can also look at them as different zones and areas of regulation. We're not supposed to always be calm. Our body is giving us information so we can react and respond in certain ways if we're feeling unsafe. And that's why one of the questions were previously, how are you responding to stress? Or how long is it taking you to come back to calm? So the goal isn't to always be calm. The goal is to be able to come back to that state after a period of stress. So we have an initial, you can see the green state, which really is a lot like the ventral state. We're feeling safe. We're feeling relaxed. We're feeling socially engaged. This is the rest and digest, the portion of the parasympathetic nervous system. If you think of it like a ladder, you would go up. The next step is yellow, and that is the sympathetic. That's the danger of the fight or flight response. This is when mobilization kicks in for self-protection if you have to run away. The next rung of the ladder, and this is now hitting the dorsal vagal section. This is the red portion where there's more of a life threat. This is where the freeze and immobility response can come from. And this all really bleeds into each other as we're talking about the ability to feel safe and what is your body's response when it does not feel safe. Today, I want to dive deeper into the sympathetic branch because this is what prepares us for activity, to survival efforts such as fight or flight, which most of us have probably heard about a lot. To also think about the sympathetic branch as the accelerator part of the autonomic nervous system. The parasympathetic is more of the brake, and all of it we have to be able to move through. So if we're breaking down the sympathetic portion of the nervous system, and if we're looking at it just by itself, we're really looking at the fight and the flight response. There's a lot of similarities between these two responses, but at the same time, there are some key differences. It is important for us to be able to shift out of these states to first know what state we're in and to recognize it in ourselves, whether it's by how we feel, how we're thinking, or by our behaviors. So some things that are really common for both fight and flight, because they're both in a sympathetic mode, you're going to have your heart rate go up. You're going to feel very uncomfortable, anxious, agitated, not able to relax, may start to sweat or shake a little bit as well. Now, when we're coming into the fight response, one couple things you notice is that there's a lot of anger and resentment when you're in the fight. You're highly critical, may hold lots of grudges. You also may take things very personally and be very defensive and feel the need to dominate conversations. Whereas when you're in the plate response, you'll tend to escape with your own thoughts through lots of to-do lists. Or you may be escaping by eating or drinking and doing other substances. But I just wanted to touch on the to-do list a lot because I think a lot of us are stuck in this busyness or stuck in flight mode. We are almost addicted to doing something. We keep wanting to get another degree, get another certification. A lot of it is we may not be seeing the fruits of all the work that we're doing. 'Cause it's all about just doing the next thing. It's almost like there's this avoidance. Another piece too, if you're in the flight response, is that if you get uncomfortable, you'll try to avoid or hide from different situations because you really just don't want to deal with any conflict. In a lot of ways, you could just be going through the motions. Now, when you're in the flight response, you may not be talking as much. You could have a lower volume, or you're just like rambling and trying to change the subject, really hitting on the avoidance piece. So with the flight, you may be avoiding with action, but you also, as in action, as in doing lots of work, adding things to a to-do list, escaping with eating and drinking, or it could be just changing the subject altogether. And your posture, you may start to hunch over to make yourself look smaller, almost like you want to retreat into a background. Your breathing could be very quick and shallow, very much in your chest. The muscles in your jaw and neck and upper back can be very tense and may also be trembling and shaking. Your eyes can be really distracted, that you're avoiding eye contact with the environment, or you just try to hyperfixate on an object, like playing on your phone. The opposite would be with the flight response. They're more talking very loudly, would be screaming and yelling. At the same time, their eyes would be more hyper focused or fixated on something, almost like a tunnel vision. Now, the mind, if you're in that flight response, is very highly critical of yourself, but also on others. You also can be very highly emotional and stuck in this all or nothing mentality. I think that is a big piece that a lot of people experience, but we don't recognize that as being in the flight response. That could be a big sign that you are stuck in the sympathetic state. All or nothing mentality is being hypercritical, thinking that there's this completely right, there's this completely wrong, unable to see a middle ground. A lot of that, those behaviors are very symbolic of being in that fight response. If we're moving over to the flight response, your thoughts are racing and you may have difficult concentrating on tasks. Sometimes you may struggle with thinking clearly or critically, but their thoughts are hyper fixated on a certain topic or an issue. Now, something that also is very similar, because fight and flight are both part of the sympathetic nervous system, is that our gut starts to produce more acid that actually slows the ability of gastric emptying, which could possibly lead to constipation. We think a lot of people struggle with some GI disorders, and we don't always talk about or realize how much the stress state that we're in could be contributing to that. Another big piece too is that our body is releasing catecholamines and hormones. As we said, not only is changing the gut motility, but it also increases inflammation in our body, which impact the functioning of our immune system. This is actually changing the microbiome in our gut and how our body will read pain signals. As we're going through and talking about the sympathetic nervous system, how often you fall into that state. Maybe you do go in and out of the different states pretty easily. Or maybe you realize that you live a lot of your life in this particular state. And that's okay, because the first thing we need to do is to recognize the state that we're in and recognize those signs before we're able to take action steps using different ways to gather information from our body to help change the state of our nervous system. So if you like hearing about the sympathetic nervous system, stay tuned. On the next Pocket Wellness, we're going to continue the conversation and we're going to dive more into the dorsal states.
Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, subscribe, and share with a friend. Want to learn more about a specific topic? Drop us a line on our website and we can explore it deeper with you.